know the story of Jacob's ladder. It really is one of the most consequential and important stories in the Old Testament that really sets up the entire rest of the Bible and what is going on with it. So that's what I want to look at here today. Now, quick plug, if you like the content in this channel, keep in mind that a subscription can really help us in our early stages. We're almost at 100 subscribers, which is super exciting. So just keep that in mind, okay? Now, with that said, Jacob's ladder, okay, why is it so central? Well, because really what it's about is it's about heaven and earth interlocking and overlapping. Okay. Now, obviously, the Bible begins with this great scene with the creation of the cosmos and then the Garden of Eden within it. And essentially what's going on in the Garden of Eden is you can think of like heaven as one sphere and earth as another sphere, and they're overlapping and interlocking. They are together as one in the Garden of Eden. That's why God walks with them in the cool of the day. Okay. And they're bearing his image within his creation. Okay. However, we of course know that in their falling into sin and in their failure, what ends up happening is heaven and earth become separated from one another. And essentially what the entire rest of the biblical narrative is about is it's about getting heaven and earth back together as one. Okay. Now we see this certainly start to manifest in the person of Abraham and in his particular calling. And then what goes on throughout the entire rest of the story is heaven and earth, we see places or glimpses where they come together as one. We see this in the tabernacle. That's why it's got garden imagery. Even where the pieces of furniture in the tabernacle are placed, there's like a mini Garden of Eden. We see this in the tabernacle and the temple. But where we ultimately see this is in the person of Jesus Christ himself, the incarnation of God, the eternal Logos, the Son of the Father. Okay. And so what Jacob's ladder is, and by the way, the Gospel of St. John's talks specifically about this at the beginning, that Jesus is Jacob's ladder, the place where angels ascend and descend. For what does Jacob see? He sees a vision of a ladder going to heaven and between heaven and earth, and he sees angels ascending and descending upon this ladder, okay? And we're told that Jesus is this ladder. He is the place where heaven comes down to earth and where we can go up to heaven where God's space is. So he is where heaven and earth interlock and overlap, okay? And that is what is going on in Jacob's ladder, okay? Now, of course, this would even make sense then of like in the church when we take Holy Communion or the Eucharist or the Mass, that when we're doing that, heaven and earth are together because God is coming down to the altar to be present with us in the sacraments. Okay, so this is heaven and earth. The whole Bible story and the whole Christian faith is really about getting heaven and earth back together as one. And it's about seeing where they interlock and overlap, which most prominently and beautifully and perfectly happens in the person of Christ. God bless.